Hello, everybody. It is John Pollock. Welcome back to Post Wrestling. And I know that there's been an outcry from people that the first of the year came and went, and everyone was asking me, where is the MMA Prediction Show? I was not going to let anybody down. I am back from Japan, and I can only start off the year with one tradition, and that is reconnecting with our good pal, ESPN's Ariel Helwani. Welcome to the 2020 Prediction Show.
John, thank you very much for having me once again. If I'm being honest, I was one of those people who was getting a little nervous. You were a little later than usual as far as your email is concerned. And one thing I just want to say about you, you're one of the last people who communicates with me via email. I feel like most people just text me these days. But as far as setting up interviews, it's always via email.
Is it?
Which I find to be very interesting. Yes, it's always via email. Now, to like confirm times or are you ready, this and that, the quick stuff. But the initial exchange is always via email, which I don't begrudge you for. I just think it's a bit of a throwback, if you will. But anyway, I think this is the latest we've ever done one of these, and I just wanted to say I think it's entirely your fault, because I was around, I was waiting and ready, but you were in Japan.
I was in Japan. I mean, we could have done this earlier, but it would have been very, very hectic with a 14-hour time zone difference. So that was difficult. Yeah. On the email front, I just feel like I don't want to make it sound urgent for you. A text can be very urgent, but let us pull the curtain back. You and I, we also do have texting exchange as well. So we do exchange texts every now and then.
Well, that's why it's interesting.
Yes.
That's why it's interesting, because we'll exchange text, and then for the actual booking of the show, you always go email.
Listen, I always bring this up, but I feel you possess some of the same qualities as me, so I don't feel weird talking about it. But I always feel that I am the burden on people, and I feel like I text you. It's like, I understand this is a friend of mine. It's almost like I'm like putting you into a corner. Like, when are you going to come on the show? There's no out here. And the email, it does give you a little bit of a leeway to get back to me.
If there's one person who can sympathize with this, it's me. This is my jail, my personal jail each and every week. So I understand. I'm just saying, I like it, and I feel like the people should know that you're that understanding and courteous. You don't have to do it, but I got excited when I got the yearly email asking me. At this point, I feel like I'm locked into this, like, for as long as we're, friends or in media. Like, you always ask me if I'm up for it. I'm like, I actually look forward to this.
Well, I'm glad. I pick my spots with you, Ariel. I'm not someone that's going to come to you every month asking for a favor. I cash it all in January. This is the 8th annual MMA Prediction Show.
Wow. That's crazy. That's actually pretty crazy. 8th annual. Wow. I can't believe you wanted to do this with me 8 years ago, but here we are. It's a new year. And my favorite part is learning about what I said going into this year and seeing how right I was. So I'm very curious about that.
Yes. So for those that are maybe tuning in for the first time that have not seen the 7 previous incarnations of the MMA Prediction Show, we're going to go back and we're going to look at the predictions that were made last year. And then we're going to make a brand new list. It's a very simple game called Likely Unlikely that I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts during my trip to Japan, and this new game called True or False came up, and I could not help but notice the similarities to Likely Unlikely. Wow. But if there's anyone who I'm going to license it out to, it's the man on the other line here.
Wow, that was a little subtle shot. I appreciate you listening. By the way, were you really in the middle seat for the entire trip down there?
The 13-plus hour plane ride there, I was in the middle seat, and the silver lining, though, was coming home. I got an aisle seat at the very last row next to the washroom. So that was a breeze in comparison to the middle seat going from Chicago all the way to Tokyo.
I don't know what's worse. Next to the bathroom aisle seat?
Oh,
what's worse than
There's nothing worse than being the guy that, you have to bother them to have to get up and go to the bathroom. So I prefer the aisle for that reason alone, and less distance to travel as well. I had no issue being near the washroom, but it was being in the middle seat. Someone falls asleep and you really have to go to the bathroom. I'm just going to sit there until that person wakes up. I don't have it in me to like wake the person up and say, hey, sorry, I got to get out here.
Oh, I would definitely wake them up.
I feel we could do an hour on just social anxieties out there. I think it would be riveting stuff for everybody listening that just wants to hear us randomly make selections about.
Wait, I have one more question. More question. Did Wei have a middle seat as well?
See, Wei and I were separated on the flight over there, so I think he might have had an aisle seat, which he did. He did book this flight, so it may have been. That
would have been my first question. Yep. That would have been my first thing I asked him. Wait, I have a middle seat, and you. What do you have? That would have been the number. You didn't even ask him this? This didn't come up?
I'm fairly certain he had an aisle seat, but it did not come up. He was aware I had a middle seat. I think I made that known.
That is shocking. Maybe he just felt bad and didn't want to rub it in.
Yeah. I don't know if Wei's ever coming back. He's still in Japan as we speak.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's off with his girlfriend, so he's gone for another week. I'm all by my lonesome here, Ariel. If I had known in advance, you could have maybe watched Raw or AEW with me or countless other wrestling programs, because it's a very quiet week for you.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, we could have watched an episode of 1999 Thunder. That would have been fun. Did a little review on that. A particular one that I always enjoyed was the Spring Stampede. I think that's when David Arquette won. By the way, isn't Bash at the Beach coming back this week?
It is. It's like a 2-week themed event that they're doing, with this week being in an arena, and then next week's Bash at the Beach is going to be on a boat. It's on the Jericho cruise. So it's going to be matches on a cruise ship.
Oh my gosh, it's like shades of Mall of the America, or Mall of America. What is it called? That
yes, the Mall of America for the first Nitro.
Mall of America, yes.
Have you watched any AEW? I believe you were tuning in on the first week. Have you checked in at all on AEW?
Yes, I've checked in a couple times, and I like it. It reminds me a little bit of Nitro. You know, just going to TNT and the look, the ropes, the ring. I will say I find some of the production value to be a little minor league. One time in particular I was watching and Jericho was on the mic, and the acoustics sounded horrible. And then I went to NXT and I was like, this is what it should sound like. And some of the skits and stuff, it's, you know, I wish they would stay away from that stuff, because they're trying to be, you know, the hardcore fans and just be what, you know, sports entertainment isn't. But it's great to have an alternative, and I like I'm gonna botch his name. You probably know who I'm gonna say. MJF.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's a good character. He's funny. So I like Moxley's great, and Jericho, of course, has been great. The champion. So it's good. It's I hope pro wrestling continues to go in this direction. I'm a big fan of competition, as you know, even in the world of MMA. I like when the athletes have multiple outlets and multiple platforms and multiple suitors. So I hope, and I just actually listened to a great interview with Tony Khan, if I can give a plug to my employer. He was on the Dan Le Batard podcast, the South Beach Sessions podcast. Tony Khan was a guest last week. I don't know if you've heard it, but it was great to learn more about him. He's a fascinating guy. So it was a really great listen that I actually just listened to this morning.
I have not heard it, so I was aware that he was doing this show, but I will definitely check that out. He's been he has done some interviews, but hasn't been overly out there in the public eye since AEW launched. But yeah, very interesting guy. Like grew up an Observer reader, and now here's a guy that's he's involved with the Jacksonville Jaguars, with the Fulham FC soccer team, and now helping to run a wrestling company. So it's kind of insane what this guy's workload is.
Yeah, and he was talking about how he convinced his dad and what he had to do, and, you know, what his life is like. Like you said, I mean, working for a football team, working for a soccer team, those jobs are hard enough. And now the position that he's in, he's a very likable guy. I mean, I think he's like around our age.
Yeah.
And was talking about his younger years watching. So they're easy to root for, and I hope that they succeed.
Well, we are going to find out if Ariel Helwani succeeded last year. So we're going to go revisit the likelies and unlikelies that we laid out for 2019. And I've broken them up into the ones you categorized as likely and then the ones you categorized as unlikely. And we're going to see how you did. So starting things off last year, we asked Ariel, Would the Toronto Blue Jays win 60 games? Ariel believed it was likely, and they did. 67 wins. So that is one attribute in the Toronto Blue Jays' favor. From a very dismal season, they at least hit 60 games. Another likely was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. becoming an everyday player for the Blue Jays. Again, Ariel, you were on the likely bandwagon for Vladdy.
Yes.
Kawhi Leonard is a Toronto Raptor at the end of 2019. That was a likely, and that was clearly your heart speaking last year as Kawhi just up and left us.
It.
Moved on.
I definitely said that I was picking my heart on that one because I didn't believe that, but nevertheless, fine.
Tom Wright resurfaces and does an interview addressing his UFC career and his release from the company. You had said likely, and I believe after this interview, you had even told me that ESPN had done something with Tom Wright, but I don't believe he has really gone through the real deep dive into his exit from the UFC. And amazingly, Ariel, from someone that, living in Canada, this guy was quite the power broker for some time in Canadian mixed martial arts, and now a name that I would imagine a lot of fans are not even familiar with anymore.
Yeah. I feel like you and I are the only ones who care that he just kind of disappeared and didn't talk to us. Like, this stuff actually bothers me. I was talking about it with New York Brick about Lorenzo, and obviously that's on a much bigger scale, but it's just sort of weird when you have someone who's in the public eye and, you see from time to time, and then they just disappear. Like, can I get some closure? Can I find out what happened? I feel like at this point, to your point, like the ship has kind of sailed, and I don't know if he's ever going to talk again, but yeah, it's a little sad because he was really important. Like, that was obviously wasn't on the level of Mark Ratner, but I think politically and strategically here in Canada
and Australia
really
as well,
for them.
Yeah. So, he cut through a lot. Like, Ontario was just going nowhere, and this guy came in, and within a year in that position, UFC's running Rogers Center and really opening up that province. So someone that, certainly made his impact felt at that time, at least in this part of the world.
Yep.
Cain Velasquez's combination of fights and wrestling matches is 2 or greater. He would have one MMA fight back in February, but wrestling matches, he had several this year, and not just for one promotion. He wrestled in WWE, he wrestled in AAA. You said likely, and that one was correct this year.
Wait, this time last year, Cain Velasquez, pro wrestler, was an actual thing that people were talking about?
No, it was, I'm trying to remember when it was announced that he would do AAA. I don't think it was till like March that he was announced for that. But I think he had
so why did you even ask me that question?
Because
he was just about to fight Ngannou.
He was about to fight Ngannou, but I think we were going out on a limb because he had done the appearance at NXT, where he had gone there to train. And I believe he had spoken to you that was something he wanted to do with professional wrestling. So at least the seed had been planted, but we were definitely going a bit out on a limb here. I was not expecting him to be, in the roles that he would be, throughout the year in pro wrestling.
By the way, is he still on TV? I haven't heard of him in a while.
He was just, did you see the quote unquote match with Brock Lesnar?
I saw parts of it, and it looked like
it was pretty terrible.
I mean, yeah. They didn't use him the way AAA used him.
No, they used him the more ineffective way, in my opinion. And after that, like, he loses clean, not just clean, but he's submitted by Brock. It was just so unimpactful, and then he disappeared. He's been gone ever since.
Where is he?
Well, I believe that Meltzer has reported that he's scheduled for the Royal Rumble. He has not been announced for anything yet, but I don't believe he ever had that knee surgery, which I had heard was something that, he was certainly, I think the company wanted him to get at some point, but to my knowledge, he has not gotten that knee surgery. So I don't know. It's kind of a strange deal what his, cause after the Brock match, it just felt there was no momentum for this.
Yeah, disappointing because the first 2 AAA matches were so great and everyone was buzzing, and then they just turned him into the stereotypical, like, brawler ex-fighter, which just seems very not creative. But, I wish him the best.
This next one is up for interpretation. CM Punk attends a professional wrestling show in any capacity. Now, he didn't technically go to a wrestling show, but he did join a wrestling television show in WWE backstage. So I'm willing to give you this one, Ariel, but the people can decide if that one.
I said likely?
You did say likely on this.
Yeah. Wait, was it this year or last year that he supposedly did the run-in with the mask?
That was last year.
That was 2018? I
believe so, yes.
Well, anyway, I mean, he's on backstage. Like, what else do you want?
I'm giving it to you because I think it's the spirit of the prediction was CM Punk being tied to professional wrestling, and I think he definitely was. I don't think this would have been the comeback I would have envisioned. Have you seen any of? He's only been on this show like twice since he's joined it. Did you get to see him at all?
I saw the debut when he was unveiled, and he said, "Just when they think they have the answers, I change the culture." That was cool. And then I think I saw the next one, but I haven't really seen.
I think that's been it. I think he's only been on twice. 2 or 3 times is all he's been on. It's not like he's a weekly fixture on this panel.
So are people disappointed?
It's not even so much disappointment. It's almost like it's out of sight, out of mind. Like it's there. It's almost like if you wanted to come back, you could have done it in a way bigger way. I just don't feel he wants to be all in with WWE. I mean, this is a comfortable distance for him with a Fox vehicle, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's anything that anybody is really focused upon. Like CM Punk coming back, if you were to tell me what's his return that would have the least amount of impact, this is probably close to it.
Wait, let me ask you this. Do you get the show in Canada?
No, we don't.
Oh, so I was going to ask you, is it even a good show? Like, is it truly a shoot or is it kind of a work shoot?
I mean, it's very much, I mean, Renee Young has even spoken about the fact that, there's stuff that they know they can't get away with. There's, they will pitch like it's a Fox show, but it is very much going to be, comes across like it is a WWE produced news show. That's how it feels.
Okay. Yeah.
Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold have their rematch, but it takes place at light heavyweight. You said likely to this. Both men would fight at light heavyweight, but not with one another.
Yeah. Not good.
So close. And the last one here was ESPN Plus adds a professional wrestling company that you also said likely to. No professional wrestling on ESPN Plus.
Which I still think they should add it, but what do I know? Wait, so I did really bad, huh?
Wait, well, those are the likelies, okay? The unlikelies, you cleaned house on this, okay? So rather than go by all of them, like literally of all of these unlikelies, you got one wrong. So that tells me that I had some absolutely crazy premises to throw at you last year, and you were just not buying into any of them. And good on you, because most of them did not occur. The lone one you got wrong in the unlikely category was the Toronto Maple Leafs and Toronto Raptors each go to the third round of the playoffs. The Raptors went further. The Leafs did not.
And I said unlikely.
You said unlikely. I think you were less optimistic about the Toronto Maple Leafs chances. But these are the ones you nailed, okay? The New York Knicks win 30 games. You said unlikely. They only won 17.
Yes.
This one's kind of hilarious. Brian Burke replaces Don Cherry on Hockey Night in Canada. You said unlikely. Don Cherry gone, but Brian Burke did not assume his vacant seat. Damian Cox returns to primetime sports. That did not happen.
Oh. Wow, that's a crazy one in hindsight.
Yes, I know. Rest in peace, primetime sports. Alima Leigh McFarlane appears on a major late night talk show. Kayla Harrison is signed by the UFC. Daniel Cormier retires, which I will say a year ago, that was a fairly bold prediction.
Yeah.
To call a year out that he would not retire at some point this year. This was when we had the March deadline, but the fact that he is, clearly going to fight again, I don't know if many people would have said that 1 year ago. In an effort to resurrect the Ultimate Fighter, there is another all-female season with one of the coaches being Gina Carano. You said unlikely. UFC couldn't get Gina Carano, but you did in 2019.
Yes. Yes, I did.
A hell of an interview if you want to go and see how unbelievable Dana White's text message game was to blow such an enormous money-making opportunity. Mind-boggling listening to that interview, but completely would not shock anyone at the same time.
What about how he doubled down?
Oh, I know, when he clearly got caught with his hand in the cookie jar and just total arrogance, I guess, was just doubling down.
Amazing.
Yep. I don't think I did. By the end of 2019, the UFC heavyweight champion is John Jones. You said unlikely. You also said unlikely to Ronda Rousey appearing on your show in 2019. That did not occur.
No.
Max Holloway fights Conor. How about that? Well, there you go. One of Mr. Slater's clients came onto your show.
That's great.
You said Max Holloway and Conor McGregor would not happen this year. But you didn't rule out it happening at some point, down the road. So another one for you. Tyron Woodley signing with Bellator. No. Stipe Miocic leaves the UFC. Definitely did not happen. The PFL's 155-pound women's tournament for the $1 million prize comes down to Kayla Harrison versus Chris Cyborg. That did not happen. But man, a few different negotiations. Maybe Chris Cyborg could have ended up in the PFL, but not to be. Not this year. Bellator goes exclusively to DAZN. UFC Fight Pass adds a professional wrestling company. There was no love for the professional wrestling entities by any streaming companies. A press conference takes place involving Dana White and Bob Arum. No to that. Golden Boy MMA 2. You said unlikely. One Championship runs a North American card that's broadcast on TNT. Jimmy Smith is signed by the PFL. ESPN Plus announces a spin-off show called Ariel and the Good Guy, hosted by Ariel Helwani and new colleague Daniel Cormier. I seriously thought, of all my wacky ideas, that one had a chance.
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, a lot of these, I feel like a move here, a move there, a zig, a zag. I feel like just listening to them, I'm like, that one could have happened, or that one might have been close. So they're actually not that crazy.
Well, the last one was absolutely insane. And to your credit, you said unlikely. And that was that Ali Abdelaziz would take a page out of Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks by taking all of his fighters and launching his own promotion with the first show titled Ali In.
What? I have no recollection of this whatsoever.
I didn't either until I was like rereading these from last year. I guess this was one of my late night predictions that I came up with. That was absolutely
kind of brilliant.
Absurd. So there you go.
Kind of brilliant.
I think everyone gets a sense of the game. So that was 2019. So Ariel had his clearly highest performance to date because the Unlikelies propelled him to a record of 26 out of 31, 84% correct last year, Ariel. So you have set this is Ted Williams hitting 400. I mean, this is a mark that I don't know it will ever be reached again because you just cleaned the table with the Unlikelies.
Wow. 26 for 31. Holy smokes. All right, here we go. Let's do it.
Okay, here we are, 2020. We're going to get things warmed up with some non-MMA ideas and predictions. Number one, this is a major one, especially up here in Canada, and I know near and dear to your heart. Bob McCowan launches a show within the TSN Bell Media family.
Ooh, that's an interesting twist. I was about to say likely, but then when you put the TSN Bell Media caveat, I will now say unlikely. Wow.
Do you know where TSN's headquarters is? It's right off of McCowan.
Scarborough, right?
Yeah, in Scarborough. But the street is that it's just off of is McCowan. So the promos write themselves if this guy ever makes it there.
But is it? It's not in honor of him, though, right?
No. It's just a coincidence. But I'm sure he'll take credit if he ever went there.
Do you think he reemerges?
I absolutely think he reemerges. My guess is that he's got some kind of severance package that he is waiting out. But I'll say, I've really missed him.
Yeah.
I couldn't listen to Primetime Sports afterwards. I know they've rebranded it now, and I like the people that are on it, but I mean, that was my ritual, listening to that show, especially the Roundtable.
I don't love the name, If I'm being honest, it doesn't feel like a big time radio show name. It's like a nice podcast name, if you know what I mean. But it's not
is
like
this
the
writer's block?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
And I will say, I really miss the Friday roundtable. I really miss that.
Yeah, they do a version of it now on Mondays, but to me, I kind of liked it on the Friday.
Great.
You've ruined tradition. That is what you've upset my schedule.
I told you what my tradition was, right? I would clean the house, take out the garbage, like big cleaning, Friday night, kids sleeping, and I would listen to that, and I would genuinely look forward to it. It was just a great way to end the week, you know?
That NHL deal. What a massacre.
Yeah.
Don Cherry joins TSN.
Unlikely.
So TSN will not be picking up 2 coveted free agents.
Oh.
Or maybe not so coveted for some.
Yeah.
The Toronto Raptors fail to get out of the second round of the NBA playoffs. They get upset this year, Ariel.
Is that an upset though?
Oh.
I will say that the Raptors are much better than people think, and I like the fact that almost in hindsight they're getting a lot more credit than they got last year, especially with the way the Clippers are struggling. People are realizing it wasn't just all Kawhi, even though he was a big part. Here I am putting my NBA hat. I don't know if you know this, John, but I do little sidelines these days.
I'm very aware. You were up here for the Christmas Day game.
Yeah, I was. Where were you?
Where was I on Christmas Day? I was bouncing around between multiple families. I could have had you over.
Yeah,
finish the game. Come over for some Christmas dinner of some sort.
I think they will. So the question is, will they get by the second round?
No, they won't get out of the second round. Second round, or they're out earlier.
Yeah, health has been a big issue. I'll say that is likely. They will not get by the second round.
Oh, okay. Ariel Helwani is courtside during any one of the NBA finals. Now you can update me.
Whoa.
I don't know what is ESPN's presence at these NBA finals. Are they involved in this? Would this even be a possibility? Yes. Okay, it could be.
Yeah, well, it airs on ABC, but ABC, ESPN, it's all the same family, so it's the same people who work on the games. Now, when you say courtside, you mean working or as a fan?
I'm going to say in a working capacity.
Oh, like sidelines.
Yes.
Gosh. See, like, it's a tough one because I want to do that, but I also don't want to jinx myself, and but I also want to have confidence in myself, right?
This is the joy of this show. This is where we hit the real psychological high, where it's self-analysis that is going to force Ariel to really confront his skill set that is out there, that he's going to have to acknowledge here, that he's going to have to put on a bit of an ego here and say, damn right, I'm going to be there.
That's right. And the other thing is, there's great people working there, and I don't want to, I think it's a bad look to publicly campaign for someone's job. So with all that being said, I will say, while I would love to do it, it is unlikely.
Well, that was a very Canadian answer of you, Ariel. Michael Landsberg is added to Hockey Night in Canada.
Whoa.
Yes.
That is a random one.
He leaves his home of TSN and he pops up at Hockey Night in Canada that is going over a massive overhaul in the post-Don Cherry era. And Michael Landsberg finds himself on Hockey Night in Canada.
By the way, who replaced Don Cherry? Or
no one replaced him. They've kind of just kept that segment like open. And I think that was smart. I think anyone they put in that chair would have just been absolutely destroyed and gone within 3 months. You never want to be the person that replaces the institution. You want to be the person that replaces the replacement.
Yeah. But, so is Ron McLean still there?
Ron McLean is still there. I think they're still like toying around with what they're going to do with that first period break. But I am hardly the Hockey Night in Canada aficionado, so I don't know exactly what they're playing around with. But no one has been put in that role of Don Cherry. And this wouldn't be Michael Landsberg necessarily in that role. He would just be part of Hockey Night in Canada in some form or fashion.
I will say unlikely to that one. And I'll also say I miss Strombo. Where's my guy Strombo? I feel like he kind of got the raw end of the deal on that whole thing. And I really enjoyed his show, especially on CBC, The Hour. Do you remember that show?
Yes, absolutely.
I thought he had good guests. You know, he tried to do it on CNN for one summer, and I don't know, for whatever reason it didn't work out, but I miss that guy.
There was one time that I was in England on vacation, and I was walking around on the streets, and George Stroumboulopoulos walks by. Here we are. We're both in England, and we stopped and said hello to one another. And he was, anytime I've run into that guy, he's always been extremely personable. He used to do a show at the same time when we were doing the law at this station, CFRB here in Toronto. Always a very, seemed like a very nice, personable guy the few times I ever interacted with him.
And what about Rick the Temp? Whatever happened to him?
God, I went to this 90s nostalgia concert back in June, and he was one of the MCs. And dude, he looks identical to how he did 20 years ago. It's amazing. That guy has not aged a day in 20 years.
And does he go by Rick the Temp?
I think he goes just by Rick Campanelli now. He's on ET Canada. He may still be on ET Canada. That's my...
Oh, really? So he's still like a guy. He's still a talent.
He's still around in different forms. I'm not watching ET Canada, but I believe he is still there.
Good for him. Legend.
All right. These are a few specific to your world. The first one, Ariel Helwani's MMA show features a guest appearance one week by the legendary Stephen Brunt.
Oh, wow. By the way, quick plug. I was on his new dinner show. Did you see that?
I did not see this. What's his new dinner show?
Oh, you don't know about this? This is big. I think it actually launches next week. Stephen Brunt has a new interview show where he has dinner, but there's no real eating involved.
Oh.
We're just kind of at a dinner table. And it's like a 20, 30-minute, for now, web-only show. And I was one of the guests, and it was incredible. It was a great honor. A promo was released late last week on the Sportsnet social media, and he interviewed Dana. So he came to Vegas when I was there for 245.
Okay.
And he interviewed a bunch of people in Vegas, like myself, Dana, Brent Musburger, Ed Olczyk, and there's a couple other, like Rob Gronkowski, Scotty Bowman. But anyway, yeah, so that comes out. I think it's called Open Table with Stephen Brunt.
Huh.
And I know you share an affinity with him, of him like I do. So that's exciting. As far as him being on my show, that actually would be an interesting guest for the Wednesday show. I don't know about for the Monday show.
Well, let's expand it. I know you have a big empire now with spin-off shows here and there.
Yeah.
That the Ariel Helwani empire
sure.
welcomes Stephen Brunt on as a guest.
I kind of like it, to be honest. I'll say likely. I like the idea.
I mean, you can really control this one. There's certain ones I just hand you, and it's all up to you.
Yeah.
Can I just say that as the wheels are spinning here, they really missed out on a very easy name for this, Stephen Brunch.
Oh my God.
That should be that's the concept.
Maybe it's not too late.
Yeah. That's a lot of meals that guy took in if he did all those interviews in one fell swoop down in Vegas.
Yeah, but we never ate. We didn't even order any food. We just sat at the table. So
maybe that's the secret to it then, for Brunt to do all these over food. Okay, I think you'll like this one. In an effort to embrace the minimalist culture of Tight Ship Troy, ESPN introduces the daily MMA Minute.
Oh my gosh. What an idea. I just saw TST before I left. That's why I was late to this. By the way, what a nice little addition to the crew, right? I mean, he's got a great flair for the dramatic with his tips and his voice. I think so anyway.
Dropping tons of, has been a great contribution on the show.
Thank you. He'd be very happy to hear that. ESPN, I would say unlikely.
Okay, moving on to some MMA topics here. Mark Kerr is inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame.
You see, you're so smart. Only you would come up with one like that. Of course, the tie-in with The Rock and whatnot, the movie, right? I mean, it's all so harmonious. I will go likely.
Likely on Mark Kerr going in.
Yeah, because of course now they can promote it as UFC Hall of Famer, right?
It almost makes too much sense. So I'm not going to hold my breath. Bruce Buffer adjusts his pronunciation and introduces the UFC middleweight champion as Israel Adesanya.
Oh my God. Oh man. I feel like this is so great. I feel like I'm the only one who's really fighting this fight at the moment. And sometimes I struggle with it. Like, I don't have full confidence in myself when I do it. I will say unlikely.
He's not a man that seems, sometimes it drives me nuts when it's so clear. Like, John Anik to me, like the gold standard when it comes to pronunciation. And it's so obvious that him and Bruce Buffer, they are not on the same page with the pronunciation. And John Anik is not going to give up his. And so you get like the two, and it happens more often than you'd think if you're paying attention. Yep.
I agree. When in doubt, go with Anik.
Absolutely. That is good advice. A UFC stadium card takes place this year in New Zealand.
Wow.
Unlikely. Go to Australia to see a UFC.
Yeah.
Eddie Alvarez returns to Bellator.
Ooh. I thought you were going to say UFC. Wow, this is a fascinating one. It's a fascinating one because I think one of the stories of this year is going to be Bellator getting more aggressive and one less aggressive. That being said, man, that's a good one. That is a really good one. I would say unlikely.
Do you think that this year was a step forward or a step back for one championship? Because they started this year off with a lot of, I think, optimism that they are going to be going after a lot of free agents. I think Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson, coupled with the TNT deal, provided a lot on the platform for 2019. I don't know if so much of that was realized, though, this year.
Yeah, and, they signed Vitor, and, like, what came of that? Sage getting knocked out, I think, was a tough one for them. I think that 100 that 100 event was a good one.
Was that the one that 15 million people saw or 85 million people saw?
I think it was 15 billion.
Oh, of course, yes.
To be exact, with a B.
The world was watching, literally.
Yes, the entire world was watching it. It was amazing. Everyone stopped. I think that event was good, but that was the only one that was live on TNT. And I just think it's tough, to do events that are happening across the world and to really make an impact here. I wonder though if they will actually come to America this year as they've hinted. I just feel like, why? Like, what is there to gain? You've got a thing going on there. You're apparently doing well. What is there to gain? I don't think they have enough talent to put on a show that would sell really well here in America, but maybe I'm wrong. So yeah, that's a really great one because I think it's there's a bit of foreshadowing involved, but ultimately I'll say he doesn't go back to Bellator.
All right, unlikely on Eddie Alvarez to Bellator.
Yeah,
there is at least one MMA card that takes place on Showtime. Likely. And remember, they are in the CBS Viacom family, so not logistically impossible either. There is
at the moment, they have not. There's nothing there, but I feel like we're going in that direction.
There is at least one boxing card on Fight Pass.
Yeah, well, I actually think there are already boxing cards on Fight Pass.
I guess I should. I guess you're right. I was looking more at the Zuffa boxing.
Zuffa.
Specific. So let's be specific on Zuffa boxing.
Okay, so there'll be a Zuffa boxing card on Fight Pass is the statement.
Yes.
Now, just let me make sure. If there's a Zuffa boxing card on some other platform, this doesn't count.
Yeah, we'll keep it specific to Fight Pass.
Okay. I will say unlikely.
Okay, unlikely on that. The UFC introduces a female play-by-play or color analyst to their rotation of broadcasters? Unlikely. John Jones versus...
Although I will say, the one that has the best chance, I think, is Laura Sanko, who I think does a really good job, and I think has come a long way as an ex-fighter / broadcaster. Not to say that she doesn't deserve it, I just don't think it will happen this year.
John Jones versus Daniel Cormier 3. Likely or unlikely?
Unlikely.
The BMF title is defended and promoted as such by the UFC. So it's not just like a fan initiative thing. It's the UFC actively goes to the well and promotes this thing.
Gosh, I will say likely.
Likely. The bigger question, though. The NMF title is defended by Stephen Thompson.
I hope he does do it.
At the very least, we're going to get like a lineal version of this title that exists for people out there.
Yes. Yeah. It's great. Now, him walking around with it and whatnot, is that okay, or does the UFC have to promote it like they did the BMF?
We'll say that this is a more loose definition of being defended because, with all due respect, I don't think the UFC will be actively promoting this. But we'll give you significant leeway on this one if it happens.
Yeah, I'll say likely.
Ronda Rousey attends a UFC event.
Wow. I will say unlikely.
Unlikely. Do you think that she will wrestle a WWE match this year?
Is this an official one?
We're going to make it an official one.
I feel like I should be asking you this. I will after I make my pick. Wrestle an official match, like promoted, not a run-in or something like that.
Yeah, it's an actual match.
I will say unlikely.
Unlikely.
You?
I think she will this year. I think she'll come back and do something.
Doesn't she want to have a kid?
She does. That obviously throws a monkey wrench into things. But I'm still going to go out on a limb and say she does one. We'll see. Jairzinho Rosenstruck fights for the UFC heavyweight title this year.
Gosh. Very close. I will say unlikely.
Tito Ortiz finds a new company to fight for. So this is not Combate. This is not Bellator.
Yep.
This is not UFC. There's someone else out there. And Tito Ortiz adds his name to that company's roster.
Unlikely.
I mean, one championship coming to America. I mean, you almost think like this guy is just going to have to compete for everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but I don't see it happening.
A new executive is brought in to replace Scott Coker at Bellator.
Oh.
Bellator goes a different direction.
Yeah.
We are coming up on 6 years of the Scott Coker era in Bellator.
Isn't that crazy? Jeez Louise. Time is really flying. I will say unlikely.
All right. They're going to stick with Scott Coker. Cain Velasquez wins a WWE title. This can be any WWE title, but he wins physical championship in WWE this year.
Before I answer that one, what was that name that King Mo called Bjorn Rebney on the Bellator pay-per-view? Remember he called him like a name on the lone Bellator pay-per-view, and it was like a month before he got ousted. Do you remember this?
Oh, I can't remember the name he called him, but I remember this interview.
It was like on the show. It was on the broadcast. Did he call him like a D-rider or something?
Yes, that was it.
That's good.
Remember the AAA? Remember that?
Oh my God, that was
what a run they had.
One of the great,
what a legacy.
What a great footnote. Yeah, speaking of Donald Cerrone, he pretty much ruined the whole thing. He cracked like 3 days later.
I remember being because they were in Toronto, like just that week.
Yeah,
and I remember seeing like Dana go off and chatting with Cerrone at like the media day or something like that. And I think it was like the first time they'd seen each other since that press conference or something like that. God knows what was said.
Yeah. Yeah,
what
he's like,
a run they had.
I didn't know what they were talking about. I was just there to, I was just there to get a picture. The one thing I still haven't figured out, remember his eye was all messed up? Was that real or not? I still haven't decided, because in the pictures, his eye is messed up.
This is Donald Cerrone.
Yeah. Do you remember this?
I definitely remember this. I mean, I always believed it was real. I didn't believe it. He fought.
Like a week later, and it was all good.
I don't know. Being cleared to fight to me is like, I don't know. I don't even know what like the bar is that necessarily I give faith that they would stop a fight from happening. But I guess this is one of those mysteries. Is that, where are we in the relationship with Donald? Are we on an up or a down?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, we are down. We are like Ben Askren circa 2010 down, or whenever that was. I asked him to come on the show multiple times. He said no, and which doesn't bother me. I mean, he could say no. He has every right to say no. I will say what kind of bummed me out is that he didn't allow members of his team who would have come on. He didn't allow them to come on. I don't know. I found that to be a little disappointing. What did I do? I just had I gave my opinion on my own show. And I don't feel like I was disrespectful. I don't even think I was wrong. But I've been here before, and we survive.
I feel you always get out on the other end, though, with these things, where it always has a. I mean, you've been very good about, the ones that come to mind, like whether it be with Quinton, Tito.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been through this game at this point. This is kind of just. I mean, you've got to like shrug your shoulders at this point.
You know what happens?
They need you. They need you, Ariel.
Yeah. Like when things are going well, they feel empowered to do this, and then whenever they need me, But Donald strikes me. I mean, Donald never really liked coming on the show to begin with. I think off the top of my head, he's only been on the show once, maybe twice max in the past. So I could see him sticking to this grudge. I just think it's a silly one. Like, what are we talking about here, Donald? And I feel like I've been really good to him over the years. It's just crazy. Like, you could be cool to someone for 9 years, and you say one thing that they perceive as a slight, and you're dead to them. Like, just dead. It's crazy. But anyhow, what was the question again? I forgot.
Oh, this was Cain Velasquez winning a WWE title.
Oh, how do we even get to that? That is crazy. I will go with unlikely.
Unlikely. The MMAAA alumni, Cain Velasquez, unlikely to win a WWE title.
Yes.
Nor form a union in WWE would be my assumption as well.
Yes.
Okay, this one, and if you have insight, let us know. Daniel Cormier participates in a WWE angle this year. Not a match, just an angle.
Oh. Man. Angle? Man, I don't have high hopes for the Cain run right now in WWE. I really feel like they dropped the ball. So I will say unlikely.
Unlikely. I think they would love to use this guy in any form or fashion they could.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah. Triple H himself told me.
I think it should be great, but I always hold my breath. Like, we will see.
I think they want to wait for him to finish his career, get it out of his system, and then they'll re-engage.
There is zero business conducted throughout this year between Dana White and Floyd Mayweather Jr. There is nothing that materializes.
Likely.
Frank Mir does one wrestling match with WWE. I realize I'm throwing a lot of pro wrestling at you here, so I apologize. But
yeah.
Man, I feel like WWE, it's like they're just, they're desperate for opponents for Brock, and they're going to the MMA well, which, I mean, Frank Mir has kind of dedicated himself to now.
Yeah. I feel like that's a solid one, but I will go with, and how many matches has he had? One?
I saw one of his matches at WrestleMania weekend. He's done a few in Vegas. I think he's done like a handful. He's working with Austin Aries.
How is he?
He didn't strike. The match I saw, it might have been his first match. That was back in April. He didn't really do much for me. It was also very quick. It was like 2 minutes. So, ultimately for him, it's going to be his promos that are going to set him apart, which is something that Cain really didn't have in WWE. It's almost like if you were WWE and you're looking at the two of them, I could see them much more looking at Frank Mir to get the most out of it, because with Cain, I mean, to me, he's a completely different person under that mask, and they took that away from him.
Yeah. You're 100% right. The mask gave him confidence, and actually helped in a weird way, I think, get him out of his shell. I remember when he put the mask on my show, and it was only when he had the mask on was he smiling. Like genuinely happy. That one really bothers me. Anyway.
Frank Mir?
Wait, what was Frank Mir? Yeah. That he will compete in WWE?
Does at least one match in WWE.
I'll say unlikely. I think that the Cain experience will get them to pump the brakes.
All right. We've got a few more here. And I'm going to warn you,
okay.
We're building up to maybe two of the most bold ones I have ever thrown at you. So get ready. But first we go to Bellator, and Alima Leigh McFarland fights Paige Van Zandt in Hawaii this year.
Wow.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, that's a fun one. I'll say likely.
All right.
Now, just to make sure, if they fight in like San Jose, does it count, or it has to be Hawaii?
If they fight, you'll get this one. I will put this in brackets, so we don't have to be location specific.
Okay.
I think if they fight, that's enough of a forecast.
I want you to make note of this when you record the picks, that my heart is saying yes, but my mind is saying no.
Okay. Duly noted. Oh, right. So next one, Maci Barber is deemed the number one contender to fight Valentina Shevchenko. So the fight doesn't have to have necessarily happened, but at the end of this year, she is considered the next in line to fight Valentina Shevchenko, or the fight actually happens this year.
I think it's too soon, but the problem is there's not a lot of 25ers, so I'll say likely.
Oh, a likely. I feel I'm getting a lot more likelies out of you this year.
Really?
I think we have a good mix here. A former UFC champion competes in the PFL's upcoming season.
Former UFC champion. Jeez. Man. Who's out there? I will say
Tim
likely.
Sylvia.
Huh. That's a good one. I will say likely.
All right, likely. You would think like their phones would just be burning up when people are just looking at this prize money here.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we have two final ones here, okay? And these, definitely think about them before you commit to an answer, okay? So, of the current male UFC champions, Stipe Miocic, John Jones, Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Alexander Volkanovski, and Henry Cejudo. And we're going to throw out the situation at flyweight right now. So of those male champions from heavyweight down to bantamweight, each one of them is still champion of their respective division on January 1st, 2021.
So the entire group has to be still champion.
There is not one title change involving the male champions in the UFC this year. Unlikely.
Yeah.
Do you care to...
I feel like that's just kind of easy just based on, like, just the math. Like, that would be almost impossible.
All right. I think there's a chance of this happening. It's a small
there's
one.
There's a chance, of course.
I think you have some dominant champions right now, and you'd have to have certainly some luck on your side here. But I think it's possible.
It's possible, but I'll go with unlikely.
All right.
Someone's bound to lose.
And of the current female champions, Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, and Zhang Weili, those three are still champions on January 1st, 2021.
This is a tough one. This is a real tough one. I think
Zhang Weili is the biggest liability of those three.
Yeah. Yes. I'll still go unlikely.
All right. Well, that's our list, Ariel. I think we got pretty comprehensive here.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. We covered a lot of ground. I feel like this is accurate. I'm not usually very confident with my picks. Like, I thought I actually did horribly last year, just remembering how I felt when we got off, but not actually remembering my picks.
You dominated last year. You set a new record. I mean, you set the bar so high. I don't know if this one can be topped.
Was it the same amount of questions this time?
We did. Well, I added a bonus one in there, so yeah, we'd have 31 altogether here.
Wow. Okay, so I have to be 26. That's the record. Do you happen to know the worst I've ever done?
That I would have to go back. I'd have to look.
Yeah. I thought you had an Excel sheet and you just had like pages, you know?
I really should. I should really do the deep research into all of these. Although some of those years have just gone into the abyss, so it's tough.
You should hire New York Rick for that. He's great at Excel.
Who knows where New York Rick will be a year from now? I feel he's just like ascending the ladder. I mean,
he's an absolute rock star there. He's more well liked than I am. The guy just walks around. He's just a man. He's a social media guru.
Well, you're a star maker.
Very proud of him.
There at ESPN. I mean, it's quite the story to watch you two in the world of ESPN.
Who would have thought?
And still, you always come back to do this show. So I know it gets very difficult at ESPN. Through my sources, I've heard it's very difficult to schedule ESPNers to come on. That it can be very difficult.
Your sources say that?
I hear sometimes it's hard to if you want to request an interview or get somebody on, there's like a whole chain of command to go through.
Well, this is very inside baseball, as they say, but it's actually in my contract that I'm allowed to do this, and I don't have to ask for permission for this show only. Well,
that's why you've got the best representation out there. Still looking out for the little guy, like John Pollock at Post Wrestling. Well, Ariel, I want to thank you so much for joining me here. And you are, by the time people are listening to this, you are in Las Vegas. A quick question, like you got to sit down with Conor McGregor and doing your show this week. I mean, where is that buzz level? Do you feel it's at the level you anticipated for Conor McGregor's first fight in about a year and a half now?
I feel it, man. I really do. I think that distance makes the heart grow fonder. And I think people are nostalgic about that 2015, 2016 time. It was so much fun. I think that this little mini break has really helped. I mean, it's crazy to talk about essentially a 3-week break that feels like, 3 months. It feels like opening day. You know what I mean? Because it feels like, that South Korea card was in the middle of the night, essentially early morning, December 21st, holidays. A lot of people, I'm sure, were not around. And so the last show kind of feels like it was the December 14th pay-per-view, UFC 245, which was a tremendous card on paper. And so this will be essentially a little over a month later. And that's very rare for the UFC. And they couldn't have laid this out better in the sense that you have 3 weeks to just talk about Conor, get ready for Conor. And in talking to people close to him, I was hearing, best camp ever, best shape ever, best mindset ever. And I'll be honest, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Cliche. I've heard this a million times. Best camp, blah, blah, blah. And then when I talked to him, man, I believed it. And maybe I'm a sucker, but there is just a whole different vibe about him. I've never seen him this calm, this zen-like, he's been happy, of course, but is just a different guy. It almost feels like a guy who like was on the brink and saw it in front of him, like all kind of slipping away, and has a new found perspective and is a family man and is not spending his money like he was. I don't know. Maybe I'm falling for it. I remember being in a similar situation with John Jones, and he was telling me about, his new life and all this stuff. And of course he stumbled again, but, being in front of Conor and, hearing him and listening to his reasoning for why Cerrone and why 170 and all this stuff, I feel like there's a buzz. I think the reception to the interviews have been great, and he had some great lines. He had one particular line that was tremendous, I thought, when he said, they think I'm toast, but I'm still the bread. And I was just like, man, you're back. I feel like you're back. And let's be honest, fighting someone like Cerrone is a much more favorable matchup than fighting someone like Khabib. This is a guy who's coming off 2 losses, not just 2 losses, 2 finishes, and usually Conor's fighting people who are riding winning streaks, who are on highs. First time since Diego Brandao that he's fighting a guy coming off a loss. And, I think that's being overlooked as well. And he's coming off a loss as well, but he just seems to be a new person. So, I feel the buzz. I think it'll be fun. And I think anyone who's being honest would admit that the sport is just a little more fun when he's around and thriving. And so I'm looking forward to this.
Is this one show where you could see ESPN like kind of touting the success of this pay-per-view? Because that's one thing. It's kind of a difficult task to kind of get a gauge on, how some of these stars are hitting with the public when you don't have those numbers attached to them. And I'm sure for some that's good. For others, it's an easy way to gauge like whether the promotion of event truly hits with the public. Could you see this one? I mean, this is going to be a big fight on Saturday. The question is just how big is this fight going to be?
Well, I will say, like in the previous era when everything was different with, the pay-per-views, DirecTV and demand, all that stuff, the companies themselves weren't touting the numbers. It was really just Dave Meltzer, who had incredible sources built up over the years, who would have the numbers. I mean, everyone was going off of Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And because this is so new, maybe he hasn't gotten those sources yet or developed those relationships. And these are hard numbers, and they keep them very close to their vest. But if it does incredibly well, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's talk of the success, but maybe not the actual numbers. I will say this, without giving too much away. I mean, I've been at ESPN now for almost 19 months, and I've never seen, since I've been there in the less than 2 years, but we've done like 18, 19 pay-per-views at this point, even pre the deal starting. Never seen this kind of resources being put into one show, and the plans and Sports Center being out there and all the shows. And I mean, like I said at the top, I usually go on Thursday, and I'm going on Tuesday to just do more stuff and to do more stuff with Chael and all this stuff. And they're really pumping it up. And Conor was on the pregame show for the College Football Championship on Monday, and we're really getting to see, the ESPN/ABC muscle behind a UFC event. So much so that there's actually a pre-fight show on Saturday afternoon leading into Clippers versus Pelicans on ABC that will air at 2 p.m. Eastern. A UFC pre-fight show on ABC, which is kind of crazy. And some big names are going to be involved in that. So I think that they're really going to go, and I think as the week goes on, you'll see more of that. So yeah, it's really exciting to see like how the machine works and how they all kind of come together for these big fights. There's a part of me that wishes it would be like this for every show, but that's the Conor effect. He's larger than life, and he's the biggest name, and I'm happy that they're getting behind it the way they are. And imagine if he wins, like it will only get bigger, right? All he has to do is win this one, get on the microphone, everyone will be eating out of his hand again, and stay out of trouble. Most importantly, like imagine the next one. Like it's only big fights once again from here. And I think we've never seen anything like this before in the history of the sport. Like imagine a thriving Conor in the ESPN era will be a lot different than a thriving Conor in the Fox era, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting.
It's not an exact parallel, but it reminds me a little bit of Tito Ortiz's 2006, maybe in a little different order, where you just saw, you laid out these fights from Forrest, the 2 with Ken Shamrock. One of them was kind of an unexpected bonus. And then it all led to this big fight at the end of the year with Chuck Liddell at 66. And, I don't think Donald Cerrone is necessarily a Ken Shamrock of 2006, but I think Conor McGregor is a sizable favorite going into this fight with the idea that this is going to build towards something bigger. And you've laid out the potential of 3 massive fights this year, centered around Conor McGregor. And I think even losing along the way, you can still have an enormous year if Conor McGregor is adamant on fighting 2 to 3 times this year.
Yeah, no, it's a great analogy. I mean, obviously he's on a different planet, but I understand the point. And I agree to an extent about the losing, but I don't think he can lose this one. I think if he loses this one,
this one's important.
It won't. Yeah, this one's really important. Like, he can win this one and lose the next one and then get a third one, and that's cool. But it will be tough to lose this one. Obviously he plays by a different set of rules, and he's just really popular. I mean, look at the tumultuous year that he had last year, and still, he's still very much a huge draw and beloved. And I always get excited when people come up to me like, oh, tell me about this fight and who's he fighting and all that stuff. So clearly it's breaking through. But I think it's a really interesting analogy. And, with Conor, there is something to be said, for everything he's been through. Like, people are just drawn to reclamation projects, and, people are drawn to the idea of someone's back or someone's changed, as opposed to just like someone's coming off a loss. Like, that's pretty common. But I mean, he really had a horrible year, the kind of year where he started to look like a stereotype, right? For the fighter who had it all and it was all slipping away, and along the way lost fans. And that's 100% fact. But man, I can guarantee you all those fans who online are saying, oh, I'm off the bandwagon or whatever. I guarantee you they'll all be watching. And I guarantee you they'll get excited if he wins and is talking about, X, Y, and Z afterwards. So if he wins, wow, there's a lot that they can do. And then it gets really interesting. And I'm really curious. Like, I think he's going to look really good in this fight. And I'm really curious to see how quickly they're able to get him back. Cause honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. They have a pay-per-view on March 7th, and they have Zhang Weili against Joanna, as we talked about. And the main event slot is open right now, because their talks with Adesanya aren't going really well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he wins quickly if they try to turn him around for that card.
Wow. That'd be quite the turnaround too. Cause that March card needs something that qualifies as something if they could be able to put that all together. Well, Ariel, I've kept you a lengthy amount of time here. I'm hoping that this was an enjoyable ride home for you.
It was amazing. Yes, you've actually been a huge help. This ride home after my show is 2 hours long, and we've been on the phone for like an hour and 15 minutes. And you've actually helped me more than I've helped you. So thank you very much for the time and for having me. And once again, you guys are doing great work, and it's such an inspiration to see what you and Wei have built. It really is for journalists everywhere. I tell people about what you guys did on your own. I've told this story many times to young journalists, so keep it up, and it's always an honor being on postwrestling.com.
Well, you can follow all of Ariel's coverage this week. He will be all over the UFC 246 coverage for ESPN, of course. Ariel Helwani's MMA show airs Mondays at 1 p.m. Check out his show on Wednesday with Chael and with Chael Sonnen. So much to follow this man with. And final thing, where can people check out the coverage on Saturday that you'll be doing from Vegas?
Oh yeah, youtube.com/ESPN MMA, and obviously a ton of stuff on SportsCenter. And also I'll be doing a 3-hour radio show on Saturday, which I love radio, so I'm excited about that on ESPN Radio, coast to coast. You can also listen online if you're not in the United States, or if you don't get ESPN Radio, if you don't have Sirius XM channel 80, I believe it is. And I'm also doing a 1-hour radio show on Wednesday, which we'll have on the podcast feed afterwards, and a ton of coverage in Vegas, and that ABC pre-show on ABC, 2 p.m. Eastern. So very exciting to be a part of this. This is this is the dream right here, to be a part of a big fight, and cover it for, this outlet. So it is an honor, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while since I felt excited like this about a fight. I'm getting old, John, and sometimes I get anxious and sad when I leave my family, and I will feel that, but I'm excited to be covering this particular one.
Well, Ariel, we will all be following along, and thank you as always for doing the show each and every year. You have an eternal invite, so it's
thank you.
It will always be
Email.
Appreciated. The years and years. Yes. Maybe next year, maybe I will send you via snail mail an official invitation to the MMA Prediction Show.
Note.
It might happen for next year. Well, Ariel, thank you so much for joining us. And that is it, everybody. The prediction show is over. And then next year, we will look back and we will all reflect on, wow, there was not one UFC title change in 2020. John Pollock, what a 2020 foresight this man showed in this year.